Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
All right, thank you and good morning. We want to say a big thank you for joining us today on Morning Spring. This is where we look at very important conversation as far as Nigerians, are concerned, and everybody living here is about having deep and frank talk, frank conversation about issues of public importance. Femi Ojo is my name, and I welcome you to the midweek edition of this program. We look at the headlines firstly on the program, and after that, we then get talking on various issues geared towards having a better and a working nation, the kind of nation that we're all proud of. Green and white is the color, you know, and good people, great nation is what we are known to be, but then we must work the work. Thank you for joining us again. And of course, I'm not here alone. Evelyn is here.
Good morning, Femi. How do you do today?
Thank you. Great.
And making it work is why we are here.
Right.
We are here to serve you the details and information that you ought to know and also stay informed on critical and pertinent issues in our country, Nigeria, and beyond. My name is Evelyn Ohiolei, thanking you especially for joining us this Wednesday edition of Morning Spring. Super delighted to have you here with us.
Thank you for joining us. And of course, we must move very fast this morning. So many things to talk about, but we get to talk about some of them in the headlines. And of course, we are not here alone, but we'll go on this break. We'll come back. We head straight to the headline.
Nigeria still has some breathtaking natural areas and national parks. These forests and wild places help maintain healthy ecosystems, clean rivers, rainfall, and even the oxygen we breathe. But if we allow our wildlife to be poached and our forests to be cut illegally, we may lose this forever. So let's do the right thing. Tell your families and friends not to buy illegal bushmeat or illegal timber from our protected forests. It's time to save our wildlife and forests in order to protect our natural heritage. Keep them wild, keep us safe.
All right, we head straight to what the papers are saying, giving you very interesting headlines are seen in our major daily for today. And of course, as usual, the midweek, we have Lateef be here. Thank you for joining us, Lateef. Good morning.
Good morning, Femi. Good morning, Evelyn.
Good morning.
Yeah, and quickly, we start with the Daily Trust. The Daily Trust newspaper. Terrorists abduct scores of female IDPs in Borno. You want to wonder why. Terrorists abduct scores of female IDPs in Borno. Daily Trust asked that. Riders, they left camp in search of firewood. Community leader, and in search of firewood, they've been fortunately abducted. Only 4 of 117 returned so far. 4 out of 117. Military, Borno government, mum. Why are they quiet? And federal government to Israel, stop war on Gaza, right? And of course, you have Billy of Smokes there in the picture of, you know, what is happening there. And moving on, repent or leave Kano, Hisba. CG tells immoral persons. Nigeria's economy not in distress. Interesting. That's coming from Tinubu. Nigeria's economy not in distress. Ghana Central Bank suspend forex licenses of 2 Nigerian banks, and top street tribalism, flawed elections, bane of quality leadership. Former President Goodluck Jonathan. Mixed feelings as Binance exit Nigeria. And Lassa fever kills 13 as missiles. Buruli also hit Benue. That on and more can be found inside the Daily Trust for today. But quickly, Lateef, terrorists abduct scores of female IDPs in Borno. The writer says the left camp in search of firewood, and only 4 of the 117 abducted have been returned so far. And the Borno government and the military are still quiet.
Well, you don't expect Borno state government to say anything because their governor is busy following the presidential alarm. He's not facing his job.
But he has been doing more than that in recent times.
In recent times, but these are the IDPs that these people were sent out of their settlements initially because of terrorist attack. And they are in IDP camps. It's a shame that people in IDP camps had to go into bush to go and look for firewood again. It's a slap on us as a nation. It shows we care less about the ones that are not in the IDP camps. We care less about their security. Now the ones in IDP camps, who knows what they are eating? They are people that are, because they can't go out and work again. They've been, they have been unsettled by the activities of the terrorists. And here we are again, they being kidnapped because they went out to go and get. That's why you said he has been doing more than that before. But what is this business?
Babangana Zulum, you know why I'm saying this? Babangana Zulum, to give him the benefit of doubt, has been, you could easily say, as one of those performers.
Sharing rice
as far as governance is concerned, seeking to the welfare of his people.
But what happened to the IDPs? The question is, this is something that is happening.
Will he carry gun and stay in IDPs?
Nobody is saying he should carry gun.
Would the governor do that?
Femi,
there are people that should do that.
If the needful had been done, these people will not go out and look for firewood. If we are taking care of people in IDP are people that for now they cannot work, they cannot do anything.
Yeah.
The responsibility of taking care of them lies on the government. And if government had done the needful, these people will not go out and look for firewood.
So which of the governments? Because the business of taking care of the IDP is not just the state government affair. How many of them are crying, the bill is too much.
Femi, they are in Borno State, right?
Yeah.
It should be on the priority list of the government.
And he has been doing that.
Yeah. But he has been doing that. You are defending him, Femi.
I'm not defending Lateef. Zulu has been doing that.
Ordinary cooking materials that these people will look out for. That's why they are kidnapped. If we are prepared something for, look at IDP camps all over the world. The government takes, as a matter of fact, you give them food every now and then just to make them comfortable because they cannot walk. They cannot do anything. And now we've opened them to another danger, double trauma for them. They were unsettled by the activities of terrorists. Now they've been kidnapped. Out of over 100, 4 has returned. Don't forget Leah Sharibu, more than 4 years ago. And that's one of my major issues with President Muhammadu Buhari when he was in power. He promised we are going to get this girl. Have they gotten her back? And we make excuses for these people every now and then.
There is no excuse.
He has not done the need. In my own standard, Femi, the fact that we allowed people in IDP camp to be kidnapped again, he has not done the needful.
What I'm saying is this. This is not about, I'm not a spokesperson, but then we have governance who you could really say they have done 1 or 2 things, right? So, for Zulum, I'm not making a case for him. The business of IDP camps is not just the sole business of the state government.
I agree with you, Femi.
Now we have the federal government.
But they are in Borno State, right?
Hold on. We have the federal government. We have the military. And it's the 2 governments that have kept quiet thus far. That is what I'm saying.
Not getting my
that why we putting culpability only on the doorstep.
Failure of the FG, failure of Zulum.
Yeah.
Why I'm faulting Zulum in this case is these are minor things that these people should get. They should not go out and look for firewood.
All right.
They should not. It's like you tell them to also go out and look for food they would eat. They can literally not get food themselves because they are not working. Give them the basic amenities. Why you plan on resettling them? I know there are plans on, okay, we want to, rebuild your communities, resettle you guys. But before then, what do these people eat? How do they go about their lives? If they had not gone into the bush to go and get firewood, they might not be kidnapped again.
All right. That will be all from the front page of the Daily Trust.
All right, we move to the Punch newspaper this time. On the Punch newspaper, food smuggling. FG intercepts 141 grain trucks drivers. Drivers threaten strike over attacks. Customs sees 120 smuggled grain trucks. EFCC intercepts 21. Tinubu orders sale of forfeited food. Trucks owners threaten to stop transporting food over attacks. Say no insurance for looted foodstuff. Away from that, 767 manufacturers shut down in 2023. This is according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, and that's an alarming figure. 767 manufacturers closed down business. Trial, suspected killer of Ekiti monarchs remanded. And away from that, reps grill ministers over ports concessions. On Tuesday, Obasanjo unveils new book on leadership at 87th birthday. Yes, the former president growing old by the day, by the year, and we know that it's one of the qualities, good qualities, I should say, of the former president to always talk. He will always send his letters, talk at every podium that he finds himself.
Back,
No, he doesn't. Away from that, electricity, Nigeria's electricity, fuel subsidies may gulp 7 trillion naira. The IMF is speaking again. And Army chief rather dismisses coup calls, demands good leadership. That particular story is on page 43 of the Punch newspaper for this morning. Lateef, I'm going to take you on a particular topic or situation that the Punch has been, focusing on since the beginning of the week. That's on food. For yesterday and day before yesterday, it was all on food crisis. This morning, food smuggling. Now, I'm worried because the truck owners threatened to stop transporting food over attacks, say no insurance for looted foodstuff. How do you react to this?
It's sad. The other day we were talking about people attacking warehouses, the NEMA issue, and I mentioned it that day that it's not that we are supporting people, vandalizing or looting these food items, but there is a limit to how you can keep an hungry person. And that is why the federal government, don't forget, the federal government has been saying we are releasing 120,000 bags of grain. This statement has been coming over and over. And the reality on the street is that people are hungry. And, like they do say, an hungry man is an angry man. Someone that is hungry can do anything to just get the food. That is why government needs to, walk the talk. You don't just keep releasing statements. It is sad. It was on Monday, I saw videos, one in Dede in Abuja, another one in Kaduna State, just in a day. People attacking trucks. And in most cases, these trucks are owned by private individuals. These people also use, they are putting money into their businesses. And it's sad that they have to fall victim of the failure of government. I call it failure of government because now the purchasing power of people have reduced drastically. Inflation is on the rise and people can literally not afford to buy food again. And Femi, what worried me most on Monday or over the weekend was the fact that a war-torn country, Ukraine has been in war for more than 2 or 3 years now, and they are sending us food. It's a pointer to the fact that we are driving towards being called a failed state. And these have always been my grounds that the places during Awolowo's regime, this man created farm settlements where you only settle farmers. All they do there is to produce food and bring them to town for people to buy. Evelyn, go check. The one in Oshun has been sold off by politicians to themselves to build houses for themselves. Yeah. And we are crying of food crisis. Over there in the north, even in Ekiti, in some other places, in Oyo, where there are some communities in Oyo State that you go there, you buy this yam flour for a very cheap price. But those people cannot go to farm because of insecurity. And we are crying of food crisis. These are the resulting factors. I mean, these are what we see as a result of all those things. So in the best interest of the nation, in the best interest of everybody, and in the best interest of even the politicians, they need to do the needful. They need to do the needful, and they need to take those steps as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you so much, Lateef, for your submission this morning. That will be all for the Punch newspaper.
Yeah, but still staying with food, and you know, if you check, the Punch. I think we just done with the Punch, right?
Yeah.
And if a producer can just put the Punch up, there is this picture that has the men of the EFCC, you know, detaining some trucks carrying food and heading towards N'Djamena, Chad Republic, Central African Republic, and Cameroon, taking food from Nigeria there. You might want to say that's business, and they have been stopped by the men of the EFCC. Is this right? Really? This is business. Anybody can choose to do business whenever they want to do it. I think there was an instruction, I'm not too sure now, that food exportation or so should be stopped a bit. I'm not too sure about that. But if I choose to do business, get food, and I want to make business legally, you know, to transport it to other African neighbors to make my gains, is that wrong?
You know,
knowing fully well that there is, you know, food shortage or thereabouts.
there is food.
But then I have to do my business. Why is EFCC arresting me?
There is food shortage, and I've, over the months, seen the federal. We don't forget the time they said we are going to make warehouses release food. We are going to, in fact, the time last week they said we've spoken to a manufacturer of cement, bring these prices down.
Yeah.
So in particular, I told someone, I said, we are not in a communist state where the government can control the prices of things. These people will put price on what they are selling based on factors of production. I was speaking with someone yesterday, Femi. It will shock you to know that in some states, media houses are closing down because the price of diesel...
Just like any other business.
Just like any other business. Now, people manufacture food. Yes, morally you would have said, okay, these people, why don't you think about selling within in Nigeria? But in reality, everybody in business, that's capitalist mindset. You are in a business to make profit. You are not in a business because you are a Father Christmas. Do you get? And if they feel they are not going to make much money here, why don't you export? The only thing is government make sure they pay duties on those materials.
And don't forget, Lateef, like a month ago or thereabout, when this thing was becoming tougher, there is a governor in the north central, one of those north central states, that said food should not go down south, that everything produced in his state should just stay there and stay in the north. I'm talking about the governor of Niger State, and nothing happened, really.
You know, so, see,
because he feels you must. The question is, he feels my people must be fed.
So what
south.
What about people in Niger State? As a matter of fact, that negates whatever national whatever we are doing in Nigeria, because if you say food should not go out of your state, there are other things that your state is not producing also that would come.
Yeah, because people told him that means oil should not travel to Niger.
So now,
many things.
You know, there was a time we were talking about natural resources.
Yeah.
People were talking about Zamfara gold, being a property of Zamfara State.
Yeah.
But the gold in Osun is a federal government property. Double standard. So if Niger governor feels food should not go down south, or wherever else, then oil from the south should not go to the north. Is that what he's saying?
Reciprocity.
Because it is what there are some other African countries also that cannot produce what we are producing. We need them. That's why you have this economic trade among nations. You don't have it all. You don't have it all.
All right.
There are nations that produces gas in high number. They are as big as Germany is. They import gas from Russia. So what are we saying? So we can't feel like, okay, so we have it all, then we should, make other people die of hunger. No, it's not done.
Couple of headlines. Let me take the nation briefly. A bigger chunk of the front page as a paid advert, but top strip, our economy, talking about the nation now, our economy not in distress, says Tinubu. Reforms will take country out of challenges. All right, and 72,000 tractors needed to enhance food security. Binance exit Nigeria over forest crisis. There's been this back and forth about Binance having some of their, top guys invited or made to be arrested by orders of the National Assembly. But away from that, our economy not in distress, says Tinubu. Reforms will take country out of challenges. That's what the scene say.
Of course, yes. That's what he says.
Challenges. Reforms will take care of it.
No. He said the economy is not in distress.
Yeah.
But in reality, with what you and I see in town, is he in distress or not? Now, so it's one thing. If he had said reforms would take the country, if he had removed the issue of our economy not in distress, I would have taken, okay, so you are doing some reforms which might take time to, but that you are saying the economy is not in distress.
Yeah.
I beg the president to go and say that without security on the street. See, you should not just take Nigerians for a fool. We are talking about an economy where people now attack trucks on the road that carry food items, and you are deceiving yourself that the economy is not in distress. We are talking about an economy that your monthly wage cannot take you home. It cannot take you to half of your way. If you look at the minimum wage in Nigeria, is it 33,000 or 30,000 naira? An average Nigerian family with 33,000 naira, if you don't want them to steal, they cannot feed on that money for a month. Don't forget they will pay house rent. If they have, I'm not even expecting someone that earns 30,000 naira to have a car. That's the reality. Because how do you want to maintain, or how many years salary will you come up with to buy a car? Now, but besides that, there are other expenses. You have students, you have children in school that will pay school fee. So how do you want them to go about that? And we are deceiving ourselves that the economy is not in distress. Right. So if there's another grammar, I know Femi is good with those words. It's more than distress in this time around. But we hope now that some of this reform that the president has said he's doing would yield in positive returns for Nigeria, because there is a limit. There is a limit to how we can push people. There is a limit to everybody's level of tolerance. Some people will tolerate and tell you, okay, and there are some people you can speak grammars to. There are some people that they know your grammar. So that's just the reality.
All right, thank you so much, Lateef, for your time always on the show. We sincerely appreciate it.
Yeah.
And this is where we take a pause and return back to focus on the conversation, still focusing on our economy. We need all that we can do at this time to move Nigeria forward. And so we will be speaking to a stakeholder who will give us more depth into what we are facing as a country. Morning Spring, we'll be right back. Do not go anywhere.
All right, thank you for staying with us. The conversation starts right now, and it's about the state of the nation, really, governance and policies, and, at the national, at the subnational. Yesterday on the program, we talked about the nod given by the federal government, setting up a committee to look into the 12-year-old Oransaye report, for trimming the size of government and bringing them to efficiency, having value for what they do, for how they are remunerated, and of course, cutting excesses away from governance. We'll still look in part into that today, but then beyond that, we look into governance and some of the policies of the government as we are seeing right now. Just a few days ago, we learned there is these policies that has been mooted, that there will be expatriate fee that will be paid, by, of course, expatriate that come into the country to work, $10,000, for the regular, I'm putting that, and then anybody at the stature of a director will pay $15,000, and many persons are wondering, okay, maybe that's fine. But many persons are fearing, what about the rule of reciprocity if actually countries, other countries of the world will reciprocate what Nigeria is asking for? Many things. Restructuring is one topic on the front burner. And just recently, the Femi the Pan Social Yoruba group has reminded again. In fact, they've used very strong words to remind Asiwaju that yes, sometimes in 2017, Adama Singba, you gave us your word. We spoke about these things. You are a Democrat. That's the way you are known. And now that you are in charge, this is time to restructure. Many persons will say maybe these things being talked about in restructuring are being done by or are being effected by different policies of the government as well. But then, to, shed more light on these and give us a proper perspective, and some maybe legal dimension to these as well. We are being joined by Dr. Misbau Lateef. He's a university scholar, a legal practitioner, by the way, or lawyer, and of course, a public affairs analyst. Doctor joins us, from the UK. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Good morning to you and to your viewers.
All right. Thank you. We are very happy to see you, and we don't take that for granted. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, too.
Now, where do we start from? Let's talk about governance, about the way, with what you have seen so far, 9 months down the line. I know there is a lot to talk about in agriculture, policies of the government. And just this morning, we were reading in the papers that the Minister of Agriculture said, well, we need 72,000 tractors, to address some of the challenges in the agricultural sector. The security seems not to really be improving. This morning, again, we read in the papers just before we came on board that 117 IDPs, persons living in IDP camps, were abducted, females, just because they were going to look for firewood. And only 4 of them have been returned in Borno State, by the way. The economy is there, the CBN trying all it can. Some persons believe in the leadership, some don't, because they think it's, just try an error thing. Inflation has not really reduced. We are now at 29.9%, inflation rate. Many things. So if you can, just make a sense, since these 9 months of Asiwaju's leadership, but then he spoke yesterday to say the economy is not in, what was the language again, Evelyn? It's not in distress. That he knows there are challenges, but everything will be addressed by this reform. But Nigerians can't keep waiting longer. So looking at these all together, 9 months down the line, what will you say is happening? And are we really on the recovery lane, as the president has put it?
Well, thank you so much, and good morning again. You see, there is so much to be looked at, and the level of complexity is such that making a general remark, may not be exactly easy unless we want to look at some of those issues, one after the other.
Yes.
Perhaps there are areas where there are successes, then there are areas where there are failure.
Yeah.
And I say this because for some of us who live outside Nigeria at this time, I think there is this general attitude towards our opinion. People tend to think that, well, you don't live here. You don't know what we go through. There is so much insecurity. There is so much hunger. There is so much anger and all of that. But I want to say with all sense of responsibility that in the age that we live in now, our distance notwithstanding, some of us do have, I would say, a very good understanding of what is going on in Nigeria. This is particularly so that even as we live abroad, I would say the larger part of our lives, are back there in Nigeria. Our hearts are at home. I mean, speaking personally, my mom is in Nigeria. I would say 95% of my family members are in Nigeria. I interact with them. I'm in touch. And I can say that, yes, these challenges are real. We cannot deny them. There is very, I would say, huge level of insecurity, hunger, and all of those that I have mentioned. But you see, if we are to be very objective and then to also be truthful to ourselves, we need to also understand that in a manner of speech, just like the late Chino Achebe of blessed memory said, that a man must in order for a man to solve his problem or something to that effect, he must remember where the rain started to beat him. Now, you mentioned that this is a 9-month-old government, a government still in the making, if you ask me. For me, really, they have done so much within 9 months that expecting them to actually tackle all of our hydra-headed, as people normally say, challenges, in the manner that Nigerians are very expectant, may be somehow for me unrealistic, if not totally unreasonable. And I'll take just one aspect, which I think has affected most of our Nigerians, and that is the issue of subsidy removal. I mean, here is a government that prior to the election, the president actually campaigned, and I remember in one of the videos, he even threatened the labor in a manner of speech that if you protest for however long you want, I will remove subsidy. So Nigeria went ahead, they still voted for that government. So, but the question then is this subsidy removal the right thing for Nigeria? Well, I'm not an economic expert, but from what we understand, experts have told us, and I agree with them, but they have made very profound, I would say, submission that, look, at the time that this government came on board, and I want to say this, this is not speaking for this government, so at the time that this government came on board, Nigeria, had such level of humongous debt and budget deficit that they had to be borrowing, and over 90% of our revenue or received was going to servicing debt. So it was practically impossible, for example, to continue to pay subsidy. This is particularly so also that as of June 2023, there was no provision in the budget to pay for this subsidy. So for me, if you look at it from that perspective, the pains, which are quite unfortunate, that our people go through now, which by the way, is not actually peculiar to Nigeria. I tell you, as I speak now in the UK, from the 1st of next month, rates or prices of everything will go up, including rent. The place where I live now, I received a notice just last week regarding increment to my mortgage, and yet my wage as a university lecturer has remained constant. And then the energy bill and everything, but of course people was, so my point generally is that there are quite many challenges, trouble with Nigeria, such that unless we decide to pick maybe one aspect and look at it very clinically, it may be actually be difficult to say this government has not done well or has even done well. So there are areas where you could say, well, maybe they could have done better. People have, for example, said that, look, the post-subsidy removal strategy should have been very well articulated or devised in such a way that the kind of approach that we have seen so far, which truly appear haphazard, will have been avoided. So, but for me, okay.
Yeah, thank you. When you were talking, you said in 9 months, the government has done so much. I want to wonder, how do you mean so much? In fact, I'd like to ask you, okay, it's quite complex for us to just, put a review on everything just now, especially within the time frame. In what part, in which of the sectors do you think the president and his policies and his anglers are making headway? Many Nigerians will try to say, just mention one in which it looks like this is looking promising.
Okay, you talk about insecurity, for example.
Yeah.
I think initially this government was confronted with the same level of insecurity they inherited with President Muhammadu Buhari, and it appeared at some point that they were not able to actually reduce that. But I don't know how you see this, but I want to think that despite what the unfortunate incident that you reported this morning, in the past 2 or 3 months, the incidents of kidnapping or the banditry and all of that, they seem to have gone down to a very considerable extent, particularly in the I would say areas like Kaduna, like even Benue, No, sorry, yes, Maiduguri, Benue, yes, and even some part of the country. So the insecurity may not have been completely addressed.
Yeah.
I admit that, but I don't think that the crisis has not actually subsided. Now, if you ask me also about the economy, now we've seen the papers, we've seen the numbers, we've seen the ratings. You know, the ratings that this government has, yeah, it is possible to say, well, these are just paper assessment. How do they exactly affect the common man on the street? Yes, perhaps it will take time before the effect trickle down. But the economic outlook of Nigeria, just as the president said himself yesterday, does not look distressed. It's not distressed. Nigerian economy is not distressed. I mean, and the rating agencies globally, they have affirmed this. Experts have said the government has taken the right step, you know, to address some of these challenges. So for me, really, I think on economy, yes, the impact has not trickled down to affect the common man. But you see some of these gains, as we have seen in other climes, they actually take time to materialize, particularly when you are treating the kind of challenges that we have had to go through in Nigeria, how people literally dip their hand into national revenue or resources, you know, the looting and everything. So if you ask me again, I will even mention anti-corruption. The approach that this government has taken to fighting corruption, for me, from my personal assessment, I think it's different from what we have seen in the past. What we saw in the past was people making so much noise about fighting corruption, you know, motion without movement. But I think so far, without making so much, there doesn't seem to me to be any issue with, you know, the kind of, maybe it's too early to actually assess them, but I think this government has also addressed the issue of corruption. We've seen a minister, for example, who was almost summarily suspended or dismissed. So if we look at some of those, you know, areas, I would say in specifics, we may actually want to say, okay, perhaps we should still give this government some time. 9 months, for me, is actually too short to assess a government that has inherited the kind of challenges or crises they inherited from, you know, the previous government, which ironically is the same party as the current party in government.
All right. All right, Doctor. Now, talking about time, it is the time that, do you think Nigerians have that time? You're not in the country, but I'm sure you must have heard news and reports of citizens attacking trucks, looting warehouses, cutting away foodstuff. Countries where I hear that from, I mean, I've heard that happening in Gaza, and we know that it's a war going on there. But in Nigeria, where we don't have a war, and people are doing everything to just eat, to feed. You see trucks going on the way, had an accident. Normally, a Nigerian will want to help the driver, you know, get the goods back into the truck, look for help, and, you know, make him leave that particular place. But as at now, even the best of citizens now just want to eat. And when they see such a truck, all that comes to mind is cut away with whatever you can just to feed for the next available next days. How would you react to that when you say that our economy is not in distress? Do Nigerians have that luxury of time for the policies that Mr. President and his team is putting in place to trickle down to the bus driver in Alekuwado, to the pepper seller in Bere? Do they have the time?
Yeah. Honestly, I agree with your assessments, and I think the points you have made are quite valid. But the question then is, now we are confronted with these challenges, even when we are not in a war zone, like you have said, and then we see our citizens, you know, pursue truck driver, you know, looting here and there and blah, blah, and all of it. For me, really, I think this is actually an opportunity for Nigeria and the Nigerians to sit up and then address what I think has been a major challenge to our national development over the years, and which is a nation should be able to feed itself. The citizens, without putting the blame back to the citizen now, yes, there can never be enough time. You know, an hungry man is an angry man, as people have said. I understand the anger, I understand the reaction and all that. But the question then again is, we haven't really done much. one as a government, which I think have been largely irresponsible over the years, and then even as citizens too. So I think it is time for our people to appreciate the challenge of the moment, and for people to also look inward and see how they can, I would say, cut down on some of our excesses. I don't want to use the word irresponsible, but I think on the part of government and even citizenry, we have had several years of irresponsible living, such that, and I'm really I find it difficult to actually say, but I think this moment calls for a national dialogue or even reorientation, if you ask me. Look at the subnational government, for example. You mentioned the subnational government earlier, and I will go specific here. I'm from Osun State, in a town called Ifon, where we have a local government called Ohiolei local government. And I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility. That local government on paper receives an average of 250 million naira, federal allocation every month. Go to that local government. You won't see any evidence of 5 million naira per month. And of course, this is not peculiar to Osun. This is what we see in all other states all over Nigeria. The local government administration have been practically paralyzed, I would say, mostly by our governors. So the people themselves, I think we have to sit up, and this is why I think the looting, the attack on the truck, for me, they're actually, in a manner of sense, a blessing in disguise. It appears people are now waking up. Yes, people should actually wake up. They should ask questions. This attitude of everybody looking up to Abuja cannot work, cannot solve our problem. The problems are local, and they can only be solved locally. Again, go back to my local government, 205 million naira, sometimes 250 million naira. I can send you some of this report if you want them. This is averagely what each local government receives, particularly since removal of subsidy. But then, do this fund, do they get to the locals? Insecurity is local. The villages, the bushes, where these people hide, they are in the local community, where the KBAC, where the Obas are. So if this fund don't get to them, how do you expect the traditional institution, for example, to have the resources to address some of these challenges? So, but everybody keep looking up to Abuja as if there's one miracle that will come from Abuja.
But Doctor, let me butt in here. You say everybody keep looking up to the center to get funds, but then the question is it not the center that actually created this problem for itself? If you allow true federalism, allow the local governments to work as it should, allow the state governments to work as it should, and allow the federal to work as it should, we might not actually have this kind of problem or crisis that we have at this time. So one might want to say it's the federal that actually caused this problem for itself.
Well, it is true to an extent that the federal government is also responsible for this. I mean, the way we have run our government over the years is such that we centralize everything. Our people are already used to this over-centralized system, which in another perspective has actually been responsible for the inefficiency we see in the system. When you over-centralize, you tend to kill efficiency. But that said, the question is that there is no perfect federalism anywhere in the world, not even the US. Just 2 days ago, the Supreme Court of the US gave a judgment, addressing the issue of federalism in that country, where a state, purported to bar a particular candidate. My point is this: what we have, let's make effective and efficient use of it. As we speak now, the state receive chunk of allocation from the federation, but the people don't tend to focus on the governor who are right before their noses, or the local government chairman who are right before their noses. So for me, really, what I'm saying is this: government irresponsibility over the years, yes, but the people themselves, they will have to become active. And this is why I said the looting and everything are in a way blessing in disguise. People should rise up. I imagine people in my local government, for example, marching to the local government to borrow money, demanding from the chairman, you have been receiving over 200 million naira every month for the past 1 year. Show us the evidence. Where is the money? But if they don't do that, you see, there is hardly anything a federal government from Abuja can come and do in my local government, a very remote area. There in Oshun, we have 776 of local government.
Yeah, Dr. Lateef, couple of things, in fact, so many things to talk about this morning. You said the looting of, vehicles, food items inside trucks, the ones that have accident, the ones that are parked, we've seen it, and it keeps happening. Some warehouses have been looted. And you say maybe it's a wake-up call, blessing in disguise. Many persons will say these are private businesses. These are private, investment that are being attacked. So if you're attacking your fellow citizens' businesses, are you really making a statement? The thing is, the people that make these decisions, you might not be able to get close to them because they are heavily guarded. You can't attack, or either even verbally, the convoy of a governor, or sometimes the chairman or the president. So when you're attacking the business interest of your fellow citizen, you are just crippling, that person's business, and then it can cause anger and unrest. That's number one. Talk about government in the past being irresponsible with their living. I dare say it appears, Dr. Lateef, that nothing has changed, especially the running cost of the government. Just a few weeks ago, the president said, henceforth, gave an instruction about cutting the contingent that he travels with, 25 people when he's within the country, 20 people when he's outside the country, and just the trip to the Middle East, the UAE or thereabout, a few days ago, 38 members, at least, was what we saw, including his 2 sons. And many persons said, in which capacity was Sheyi and Yinka following you? Are they consultant with what is on ground? The people, Dr. Lateef, many people are not having issues with the painful policies of the government that are meant to be gainful. They just feel the government are not walking the talk. You are not appearing to be empathizing with the people. It's like nothing has changed in their own lifestyle. They are just preaching to us that we are the one that we should endure the pain. This is what we are seeing. The list is there. The video is there. Your 2 sons follow you to Dubai to go and do what? So that irresponsibility in living of the government of the past, I dare say, is still happening. So why should the people believe the government?
All right, thank you. Let me say this. Yes, there is this level of, I would say, mutual distrust, or maybe it could even be unilateral. People don't trust their government, and I think they have a reason not to trust the government.
Yeah.
They have failed in the past, and there are also elements of failure even in the current government. I admit all of that. But is that a reason to lose hope? My answer is no. And now, talking about citizens looting, businesses, as you put them, of other citizens and blah, blah. The question is this, when a crisis comes in a society, particularly when you have hunger and anger, as the case may be, people don't discriminate among the elite. You see, the elite in private businesses, with all sorts of responsibility, people who own these businesses you talk about, they are also part of the government. In recent time, people have talked about how the banks in Nigeria have been largely responsible for some of our crises. Just yesterday, the EFCC chairman said that over 70% of the banks, or maybe the challenges of anti-corruption, are attributable to the bank. So these private businesses, they are people that ordinary citizens also recognize as part of their problem. So the blessing in disguise is when they attack the friends, and I'm not preaching for attack now, that should not happen. That is actually criminal, that is illegal, and I'm happy that people who do this thing have been arrested. But I'm saying, whether we like it or not, the deed is done. So, but when this thing happen, they should serve as a wake-up call to the elite in government, the political office holder, and their friends in businesses. Because it's these friends in businesses who also are part of the elite, who connive with the elite in government to display the kind of insensitivity that you have also alluded to over the years. So for me, really, hopefully, this will wake them up from their slumber and appreciate that the people can no longer wait, or the people can no longer entertain all of their excuses. But having said that, regarding the president not keeping promises, well, I don't know, but specifically speaking, I think it is within the right of the people to highlight some of these challenges and see contradictions.
Yeah.
So if there are contradictions where they have said something and they did something else, well, people should take them up.
Yeah.
This is where, as I said again, citizens themselves must be very active. Right. They must stay vigilant and active to confront the government and challenge them when they go out, out of their way.
Okay, Doctor, let's still focus on the policies by this administration. The latest of it is the expatriate employment levy that the government actually set up, I think, last week, where, you know, employers of expatriates will have to part away with $10,000. That's for average expatriate, and $15,000 for directors, position of directors, and all of that. Now, I'd like to ask your impression of that levy at this time. Is it something that is needed? We know that Mr. President is the #1 marketer of the nation, and in the past 9 months, he has been doing that, traveling to different countries to woo investors, you know, to come into the country to invest, foreign direct investments, bringing it into the country. And now he's coming up with this kind of levy. What's your impression? Do you think this will deter investment, foreign investors from coming into the country? I just need your take on this.
All right, thank you. To be honest with you, I've read all kind of remarks, you know, about the expatriates, not the expatriate quota now, you know, employment, something like that. My opinion on this is this. It will not, I would say, discourage any serious investors who appreciate the business potentials in Nigeria. Now, as I understand it, one of the reasons why government is doing this, one, is to encourage employment of local experts. Nigeria has come of age. There is hardly any field of knowledge that you will not find competent Nigeria to handle. Now, the current regime or system that we have is they pay what we call expatriate quota, which is something insignificant. Yeah. Now, because of that insignificant fee that they pay, some of them actually find it easy, or easier if you like, to bring in all manner of experts, people who do not necessarily have more experience or on-the-job experience as much as Nigerians who are resident in Nigerians. So because it is easier for them to bring in expatriates, okay, they tend to overlook or bypass Nigerians. So I understand the idea is to discourage them from doing that. So if I know I can get a Nigerian accountant who is, I would say, who has all the competencies, why should I, as a foreign company, choose to pay 15,000 naira, $50,000 rather, to bring in a director? So if you are bringing in a directorate level expert, we have them in Nigeria in abundance. Right. If you are bringing in middle level or whatever it is. So for me, really, and when you talk about reciprocity, look, forget the name they call it. In other countries, they have similar practices. In the UK, where I have, there's something they call certificate of sponsorship. Now, for this certificate of sponsorship, which is something that was issued to me, for example, by my university to come and work in the UK, okay, they have to pay certain amount of money, even to their own government, for bringing me in, because they have to prove to their government that they needed to bring somebody from abroad because they couldn't find someone locally or something to that effect. So every country, they have these practices. And me, generally, I have an attitude of believing that those in government, they are not dumb. They are not stupid. They must have thought through this. I'm sure they have experts. This is not to say they cannot make mistake. But on this one, I think they have done the right thing. We have more than enough Nigeria to fill those positions. So let us discourage them from bringing all manner of people who are not even as experienced as Nigerians.
Doctor, there are dissenting voices from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, from the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA, saying that this is not good for the nation at this time. A man said that the argument is that it will discourage the ease of doing business in Nigeria. The organized private sector also seem not to be on the same page with the federal government because they believe that it will discourage foreign investment, like I have said earlier. NECA also feels that talking about the legality of this, you're a lawyer, so I would like to also take your take on that. The constitutionality of these EEL, the expatriate employment levy, it said that before you can have a government put up a levy like that, it must have the backing of the National Assembly.
Well, I have not really thought of the legal framework, to be frank with you, but some of these regulations, they are what we call secondary legislations. That is, it is not all laws that do, I mean, that do need to go through the National Assembly. You know, secondary legislation or delegated legislation is that, let's say, the National Assembly has made a law on expatriate quota, okay, and they said to bring in expats or expatriate, there are certain regulations or requirements to be complied with. So they just need to provide a general framework. They don't need to specify everything. Imagine if they had specified, let's say, £5 some 15 years ago. Are you suggesting that that's what we should be collecting today? So for me, really, the agencies of government, like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or Interior Ministry, they have that delegated authority under their primary law to churn out regulation from time to time. They don't have to be going to National Assembly every now and then. For example, imagine JAM having to go to National Assembly to fix rate for JAM form. They don't do that. Meanwhile, there is a law guiding the JAM. So under that law, the registrar of JAM and other management persons, they have power to determine fee from time to time as occasion may warrant. So talking of legal framework, seriously speaking, I do not really think there is any issue here. But for those professionals that you mentioned have issued their complaint, well, I think it is now up to government to aggregate all of these complaints.
All right.
And then let us see how the policy goes. If it works, good for Nigeria.
All right,
if it doesn't work, a government should not be afraid to reverse it, depending on the aggregation of complaints or observations on it.
Yeah, we have less than 3-4 minutes to go, and this conversation will not end without talking about restructuring. My colleagues said it the other time, true federalism, you know, the state having its own part, the local government, which is the closest to the people, and of course the center, you know, and some have even talked about regionalism. Can we go back there and every region develop at their own pace, just like it was done in the 70s and the 60s? But now, restructuring, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is being termed in many fronts as a true Democrat, and he has been big, as somebody who is big on restructuring in the past. Many persons have accused the APC government to say this was one of your campaign promises, but then 8 years of Buhari, you guys didn't do anything about it. Social Yoruba group Afenifere has called on him yesterday again to say, now you have your chance. Ashiwaju, make good of your promises. Now you have everything you need. You have the time. So, true federalism that some are talking about, especially restructuring, and some are saying maybe some of these things that needs to be structured, the policies are already there. In 2 minutes or thereabout, what will you say on that restructuring situation, especially that Tinubu has been known to be big on that topic in the past?
Okay, thank you so much on that. First, I want to identify with those calling out the president and encouraging him not to forget where he's coming from. I think he made his reputation partly also because of advocacy for issue like that. And I will expect that now that he has the opportunity, he will do it. But the question then is, should it have done it within the past 9 months? I don't think that could have been possible. You see, one of the strategies in war is that you don't open many fronts or many battlefronts at the same time. You have the subsidy issue you are dealing with, you have the forest issue and everything. So for me, really, I think we are compacting too many things into a 9-month government, 9-month-old government already. So the question is, let us continue to encourage the government, because the structuring requires a lot more in terms of politics, in terms of legalism. Because legalism, for example, they will need to amend the constitution. And my own understanding of restructuring really is devolution of power. Let the federal government devolve some of the powers to the states, so that what we said earlier, for example, people will focus less on the federal government. And I see them already talking about state police. They are talking about other things. So restructuring may not come in the sense that some Nigeria actually fantasize, hoping that one day they will say they break Nigeria into 6 or 7 or whatever. That is going to be a very long walk. And I don't think the National Assembly, given our diversity, will ever be able to muster the kind of majority to do that. So this is something for me, I think can only be done strategically and even systematically, if you ask me. They can't rush it. It's not possible. You need a buy-in of other part of the country, particularly the north. There are people who enjoy the current hegemony of centralization. So you need to have their buy-in. So you don't open too many battlefronts, as I said, at the same time. And do I think this president will do it? Sincerely, I think they will do it. Because the president has said things that suggest during the campaign, and even since he became the president, that they will do things like that. So I think we should just give them enough time to address some of these challenges. I mean, there is so much time left, if you ask me, at least 3 years, I mean, talking about the first term, I mean, so there's still a lot of time to do a lot of things, and they can't rush things the way Nigeria expects it. Otherwise, the system will crumble. I mean, you can only govern if you have a state to govern. But if you have too many crises, too many challenges or battle to fight at the same time, there's no way the government will not be weakened.
All right, a good place to anchor the conversation this morning, Dr. Misbau Lateef. Thank you so much for your time and always for yielding our call every time we call on you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, too. My pleasure. And I think you are doing a very great job. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right, Dr. Misbau Lateef there is a lecturer, public affairs analyst, and he is based at this time in London, teaching in the University of Hull.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, this is an ongoing conversation. You always have your space and the opportunity to give us a feedback and to respond or to comment on these issues on our social media platforms, on X, on Facebook, and on Instagram. You have the address on your screen, particularly on our YouTube channel, in which we are live on every time. Different content on our YouTube channel and our other social media platforms as well. So please like, subscribe and share at Western Spring Television. Femi Ohiolei is my name. And just for you to remember that the reason why this program holds every weekday is for us to have a better and a working nation, the kind that we are proud of. Good people, great nation. God bless Nigeria.
And also remember that the office of the citizen is the highest in the land. Do your job and let Nigeria be great again. My name is Evelyn Ohiolei. Stay tuned for Spring Trends coming right after this broadcast.